Welcome to this presentation. We are going to look at child protection theoretical frameworks. In this presentation, we should know what frameworks are and which theoretical frameworks can we apply in child protection interventions. And then we'll see really how do we apply the different theoretical frameworks in protecting children. So those are the objectives of this session. So, protecting children requires that we have systems in place that ensure that they really can thrive. Okay, so these systems can range from the education system, the social networks, or social support, community networks, the interaction of different stakeholders in the community to make sure that children's well-being is promoted. Okay, so therefore, you see that you have a number of actors: the government, the parents, children caretakers or caregivers, legal guardians are involved. Community organizations, NGOs, civil society organizations are all really involved in protecting children. So we have a number of stakeholders that are involved in protecting children, and we look at many spheres. Okay, we look at many dimensions of children well-being, and of which one of those that is actually very important is health. Okay, but of course, we need to really emphasize that health allows a child really to thrive in terms of achieving the developmental milestones, but also health enables the child really to be able to go to school and attain social skills that are very important and cognitively develop. Okay, so as we look at child protection, we need to look at it in a wider perspective, in many dimensions: spiritual growth, cognitive development, social development, and many others. And of course, when we also look at health, you will see that it has these dimensions of physical health, emotional or psychological health, spiritual well-being, and things like that. Okay, so we need to be able to have that broad understanding of our children well-being. So historically, child protection has had its roots in looking at child abuses that happen in communities. Okay, of course, these child abuses, like we saw, can be physical or can be psychological, and they result into long-term psychological impact. Okay, or even death. Okay, these are things that can really happen. Okay, so originally the emphasis was on ensuring that there is no harm, okay, whether physical or psychological, to the children. Okay, this was to do with child abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violation were the forefront of efforts in protecting children. Okay, but as we will see that child protection actually can be looked at beyond that, and what helps us to look at child protection beyond the areas I've mentioned are the what we call theoretical frameworks. So when we talk about theoretical frameworks, we're talking about frameworks that help us to really visualize a problem in a broader way, such that we can be able to develop interventions that can address the problem. Okay, so it's basically like saying that we have many perspectives towards the same problem. Okay, so if we have these different perspectives, means we can come up with different ways to be able to address this problem. So the different theoretical frameworks have their own underlying principles, assumptions, and hypotheses that inform how child protection interventions can be implemented and evaluated. Okay, so all the theories we'll talk about basically what is the main principle behind it. Why do we have the theories in place? Now, what do the theories talk about in terms of policies, in terms of interventions? We'll look at that in a minute. Okay, so it's very important from the onset to really realize that child protection is an area that requires different stakeholders to be able to protect and promote children's well-being. Organizations, families, the authorities play an important role. And then well-being is a dynamic concept that this is to say that it is a concept that keeps changing. Okay, it's children well-being it's not a static concept, it is a dynamic one which evolves with the time and with situations and contexts. Okay, so we use theoretical frameworks to really to be in position to understand the issues around protecting children. Okay, and this allows us to develop interventions that are appropriate. Okay, it means we use these frameworks in a number of ways, from designing to implementation and evaluation. Okay, we are able to know the key concepts, the key principles, and the key assumptions in each theory, in each theoretical framework, and this helps us along the way in designing interventions to protect children. So we shall look at these theoretical frameworks, the legal and human rights framework, the ecological framework, attachment theory, social learning theory, resilience theory, systems theory, the feminist theory, and the last one would be the public health model. So let's look at the legal framework or the legal and rights framework. This is what is very predominant in the field of child protection. Okay, the framework basically emphasizes that we should have laws, whether national or international, that safeguard or protect children. Okay, it emphasizes that children have rights, the right to safety, right to education and well-being. Okay, and that there should be legal mechanisms to address issues that result into denial of these rights. Okay, safety, education, well-being, privacy, and others. The right to make a decision, the right to health, and many others. Okay, so it should be very clear to you by now the definition of who a child is, and this is within the legal frameworks of different countries. In our context, a child who is below the age of 18, someone who is below the age of 18 is a child, okay, and should be protected, okay, at all levels, whether at community level, whether at the national level. So we have international declarations that have been made in order to safeguard the rights of children. The Geneva Declaration of Rights of Children 1924, and then the Declaration of Rights of the Child of 1959. These declarations are very important in stipulating the rights of children, that they can really be protected. Okay, and then the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Convention on the Rights of Children also still emphasize children's rights and their well-being. Okay, so the Convention on the Rights of Children is the first universally accepted treaty for children's rights and emphasizes the interdependence of the civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights of children. So, using the rights approach, it means that we are ensuring that individuals can be able to receive goods and services, okay, the health, education, access to clean water, access to food and things. These are all rights that all individuals, including children, should have access to. Okay, and then we have what you call the right or the respect for autonomy, that people, children, should have their decisions, should be able to make their own decisions, okay, as independent entities, okay, or individuals that are of sound understanding. Okay, and then it's very important to recognize that upholding children's rights and protecting them from abuses actually gives greater outcomes than if you have interventions that either protect children's rights and protection differently or separately. So it is very important to integrate these interventions. So interventions that promote children's rights should be integrated with those that protect children. Okay, we have international standards that should be used in planning for child protection interventions. Okay, so we really need to make sure that we use or we incorporate these international standards in designing and implementing child protection interventions. So let's move to what we call the social determinants of health. If you are going to address issues to do with children welfare, it is very vital that you really recognize what actually contributes to ill health in children. Okay, the so-called social determinants of health among children. Okay, we can use the rights approach to address these issues. What we are meaning with the social determinants of health, we're basically referring to the conditions of where we live, where we work, where we go to school. These conditions actually impact on our health. Okay, so we need to address these conditions in order to improve our health. So therefore, if we use the rights-based approach, we can be able to address some of these issues in our community, social inequality issues in our communities. And if we do that, it means that we are actually addressing the needs of the children and ensuring that they have a very good foundation to health and well-being. Okay, so this is very important. The other thing that the human rights approach does is that it fosters autonomy, which is that people should be able to make decisions independently and not being coerced. So this is very important in addressing, and therefore if we really address the underlying social determinants of health, we are in a way promoting autonomy and making sure that people have the capacity to act on matters that actually affect health. And this is what we are terming as individual agency and social participation. So child agency and holistic approach, this is to say that children's agency basically refers to the capacity to act autonomously, okay, and make decisions or choices that influence their lives and surroundings. So this is to basically say that we don't necessarily need to decide on behalf of the children. The children should actually be active in decision making. They should be active participants in matters that actually affect their lives. Okay, so that is children agency, the capacity to act independently and make choices or decisions that influence their lives. So we need to have children participate in decision making. Okay, that's very, very important. Their opinions are actually very valuable. Okay, so that means that in designing interventions, we need to recognize that right, the right for children to be part of what will be done that will actually influence their lives. And then let's look at what makes us do certain things and what makes us not to do certain things. What makes us to do the right thing and not to do the wrong thing. Basically, that is rooted in what we call moral theories. So the moral theories supplement the rights-based approaches to child protection. Okay, is that entities or organizations or individuals, communities, families, they do the work of ensuring children well-being and protection because it is what is ethically right, is what their values actually being right to do. Okay, these are moral things, the things that motivate us to do what is right. So we have moral theories that try to explain what individuals, what communities, what organizations, what the government ought to do in protecting children. Okay, so it's very important for us to recognize that there is that moral duty that everyone has in protecting children. Earlier on, we hinted on the fact that when we look at children well-being, we need to focus on a number of dimensions. Well-being comprises of many aspects. Health, personal security, reasoning, respect, and dependence and autonomy. Okay, so it is very important that we look at these dimensions in a holistic way, by the holistic approach. We look at all of them Okay, if we look at all of them, then it means that we are going to enable children to flourish. Okay, so that means that in designing interventions, we need to be mindful of this. Okay, we need to be mindful. For example, in children, the brain development or cognitive development requires having a supportive environment. This supportive environment comes from the family, comes from the school, and also comes from what the government says should be done when we have children. The kind of setup in schools is determined by the government. So it means that if we're going to look at children well-being, then it means we need to look at all these different dimensions. So education plays an important role. We earlier on talked about the social determinants of health. We say that there are conditions of where we live, where we work. These conditions influence our health. And if we use the human rights approach, we can be able to identify where the gaps are, the social inequities and social inequalities. And if we address them, the better. And then in the international agreements or declarations such as the CRC emphasize that children should actually be treated without discrimination, and they should be handled in their best interest, survival and development. So that means that if you address all these factors, it means you're giving every child an optimal foundation for them to thrive as they grow up. So early child development is very, very important. It's one that actually has impact that transcends into adulthood. So it means it is very important to lay a very good foundation to allow children to cognitively grow, cognitive development, social development, emotional connections, independence. All these are very, very important. So apart from access to healthcare, we need to look at the support system. We need to look at the education system, the education environment, the kind of environment that our children are studying in. Do they allow interaction, play? Do we have respect? Do you have social connections, okay, and social interactions? These are all very important aspects. So early child development is very, very, very important. Okay, so systems should be put in place to ensure that these children have the optimal environment for them to really thrive. Okay, so if you have access to quality healthcare, if you have access to quality education, it means that you're giving every child an opportunity to really thrive. Okay, and this is to say that you are actually eliminating those social inequalities. Okay, where you have poor communities or disadvantaged communities, or what you can term as marginalized communities. You don't want to have those communities. Okay, you want to have equality where everyone has an equal chance to get quality education, quality healthcare, nutritious food, shelter, and things like that. So it is very important to address these things from the start. You're basically giving a child every opportunity to thrive in the future. Okay, so it means that with this, if you look at early child development as a whole, it means that you're going to look beyond the role of the government. Okay, you're going to look at the home environment, you're going to look at the school environment, you're going to look at the government policies that influence early child development. What's the government policy on nutrition in nursery schools or primary schools? What's the government policy on the kind of setup of schools? Okay, so all these actually mean what we talked about earlier on, that we need to have different stakeholders being brought on board to talk about issues that require issues of child protection. Okay, it's very important to keep in mind that children's voices are still very important in all these discussions about their well-being. Okay, and that voice of theirs is actually part of the human rights approach, that everyone has a right to voice and participate in their own well-being. So let's now go to other theories or other frameworks very fast. The rights framework has given us a very good foundation to understand the rest of the frameworks, I believe. So the social ecological context or the social ecological framework or model, it can have a number of names. You can call it the ecological model or the ecological framework or the social ecological framework. What does this framework talk about or model? This framework looks at the different layers that can have an impact on a child's well-being. Okay, so these different layers are interconnected. Okay, so that means that if you are going to design interventions, you need to look at these different layers. You need to have a broader view of all these different layers. Okay, so these layers can be at the family level, okay, can be at the community level, societal level, and then can be at the government level or cultural level. Okay, so we have systems, the ones that are called layers can be called as systems, where you have the individual children, their immediate surrounding, that is the family, and then different families staying in a community, forming a community, and then you go to, let us say, national policies that affect or the political, economic context, okay, at the national level. So that is basically what we term as the ecological model. Okay. Still, this is the same illustration that the child's vulnerability or the chances of a child to be abused will depend on these different factors can be looked at different levels. Okay, community, at family, community, then societal level, and then the national level. So it means that this gives us a platform to be able to do different interventions. Can be home-based interventions, can be community-based interventions, can be country-wide advocacy, and to do with policy making and things like that. That's what this policy tells us. I mean, that model tells us. And then we have the attachment theory. It is very important that children form strong bonds with their caregivers. This strong attachment in early childhood forms a basis for well-being and also a basis to be able to cope up with the stresses of life. Okay, so if you have children who are not well attached or sexual, who have insexual attachment, means that you're increasing the child's vulnerability to abuse and neglect. Okay, so that is the attachment theory. It basically tells us that it is very important that we have a strong foundation for the child in terms of emotional well-being, and that emotional well-being starts when they have strong bonding with the immediate caregivers. Okay, social learning is another theory that tells us that, you see, children learn from what they see in the environment. So that means that we really need to take note of what family members are doing, of what community members are doing, of what they see in schools. These are things that will actually influence their behaviors. Okay, so it is very important that we have interventions that address some of these negative behaviors that they see in the communities or in their families. So if they witness, let us say, domestic violence, then it means that this domestic violence, of course, will have an impact on them, and they need to be equipped with the skills to be able to cope up with this domestic violence that they are seeing. So that is social learning theory. And then resilience theory is basically it means that, you see, we have children that face different hardships in their childhood, but we want to rely on their ability to really to, to surmount, to overcome these challenges that they really face. So it is very important that we identify protective factors, for example, ensuring that we have strong relations, positive coping mechanisms, and a sense of self-worth. Okay, they should see themselves, or the children should be able to see themselves as people who are worthy. Okay, and this gives them the ability to go through the difficult moments that they could be going through. Systems theory, as not something very new entirely. It's basically to say that we have different actors in protecting children at different levels, and these actors are actually interrelated. Okay, so for example, we can say that families have different members. So the actions of any member of the family, if you look at the family as a system, the actions of any member of the family can actually affect the other members of that family. Okay, that is at the family level. But we can also talk about the system, the theory, if we really want to understand the key actors, the key institutions, individuals, organizations that are involved in child protection activities, and how they actually relate to one another. So it is about looking at the child protection system in a holistic way, and then be able to design interventions while you have taken keen interest in the different actors and players. Feminist theory, with this, it takes the recognition of what gender roles play and the power dynamics. Okay, of course, we know that the commonly abused children are girls. and they are vulnerable to this abuse because of power dynamics, because of gender roles. So it means that if we really want to address issues of the power imbalance that we see, we need to empower women and girls. Okay, if we do that, then we shall be able to address some of these abuses like gender-based violence. And then lastly, the public health model. With this, we are basically looking at child protection as a public health issue that needs interventions to prevent uh, child abuses and also promote an environment which is safe for all children. So we are basically using what we call the public health model, or the public health, you can also call it a process, that we identify the problems, design interventions to address them, implement the interventions, evaluate the intervention, and come back to assessment. We assess or identify, design, and then implement, and then again, that cycle. So we can look at child protection in that way, as a public health issue that needs protection, prevention interventions to be implemented. So that marks the end of this presentation. And in summary, we are saying that we can use theoretical frameworks to guide the design of interventions that we can implement in addressing issues of child protection. It's very important for us to know all these frameworks because they give us a wider understanding, gives us the different perspectives in ensuring child protection and well-being. And we have looked at quite a number. What is very key is that you can, in practice, you can actually incorporate a number of these frameworks. You may not necessarily need to use only one framework. You can use the rights framework together with the legal framework in addressing, for example, social determinants of health, which in itself can actually stand as its own framework. Thank you for listening.